The courtroom was silent, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Clara Thompson, a young woman with messy brown hair and a simple blue dress, stood in the defendant's box. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were sharp, like a hawk watching its prey. Across the room, Judge Harold Grayson sat high on his bench, his black robe making him look like a shadowy giant. His face was stern, his lips curled into a smug smile. He banged his gavel, and the sound echoed like thunder. "Clara Thompson," Judge Grayson said, his voice booming, "you are hereby found guilty of stealing $500 from the town's charity fund." Gasps filled the courtroom. Clara's eyes widened, her heart pounding like a drum. She hadn't stolen a penny. She was just a baker who ran a small shop in the sleepy town of Willow Creek. How could this be happening? The crowd whispered, pointing at her like she was a criminal mastermind. Her best friend, Mia, sitting in the front row, looked like she might cry. Judge Grayson leaned forward, his eyes glinting with something mean. "You thought you could fool this court, didn't you? A simple woman like you, trying to outsmart the law? You'll spend 10 years in prison for this." Clara's knees felt weak, but she didn't fall. She gripped the edge of the wooden box, her mind racing. This wasn't just a mistake, it felt like a trap. The judge's words were too confident, too cruel. He wasn't just judging her. He was enjoying this. But why? Clara had never met him before the trial. Why would a powerful judge care about framing a nobody like her? Before she could speak, the bailiff grabbed her arm to lead her away. The crowd erupted in chaos, shouting that justice was served, others yelling that something was wrong. Clara's eyes locked onto Judge Grayson's. For a split second, she saw a flicker of fear in his face, like he knew she wasn't as simple as she seemed. As the bailiff pulled her toward the door, Clara whispered to herself, "You think I'm just a baker? Judge, you have no idea who I am." What was Clara hiding? And why was the judge so determined to destroy her? The story rewinds to 3 months earlier, to a sunny morning in Willow Creek, where Clara's life was about to change forever. Build up. A simple life with hidden secrets. Clara Thompson lived in a cozy apartment above her bakery, Sweet Haven, in the heart of Willow Creek. The town was small, with only a few thousand people, and everyone knew each other. Clara's bakery was the heart of the community. Every morning, kids ran in for her famous chocolate chip cookies, and old folks sipped coffee while gossiping at her wooden tables. Clara was kind, always smiling, always giving extra cookies to kids who couldn't pay. To everyone, she was just Clara, the sweet baker who never caused trouble. But Clara had a secret. Nobody in Willow Creek knew that 10 years ago, she had graduated at the top of her class from Harvard Law School. She was a legal genius with a mind sharper than a knife. She could memorize entire law books, argue circles around the best lawyers, and spot lies in a courtroom like a detective solving a mystery. So why was she hiding in a small town, pretending to be a simple baker? Because Clara had run away from her old life. She had seen too much greed and corruption in the big city's legal world. She wanted peace, not power. Still, Clara kept her skills sharp. At night, when the bakery was closed, she read law journals and studied old court cases by candlelight. She didn't tell Annie O'Neill, even Mia, her best friend since childhood. Mia was a bubbly schoolteacher who loved Clara like a sister but never suspected her secret. To Mia, Clara was just her goofy friend who burned muffins sometimes. One morning, Clara was kneading dough in her bakery when Mia burst through the door, her face pale. "Clara, you won't believe this," she said, waving a newspaper. "Someone stole $500,000 from the town's charity fund. The money for the new playground and the hospital wing, it's gone." Clara wiped flour off her hands and frowned. "That's awful. Who would do that?" "Nobody knows," Mia said, her voice shaking. "But the town council is freaking out. They're saying it's someone local. Can you imagine? One of our neighbors? A thief? Clara's stomach twisted. She didn't know why, but something about the news felt wrong. It wasn't just the crime mate, it was the way Mia said, someone local. Clara had learned to trust her instincts, and they were screaming that trouble was coming. That afternoon, 2 police officers walked into Sweet Haven. The taller one, Officer Jenkins, looked uncomfortable. Clara Thompson? He asked. We need to talk to you about the charity fund. Clara's heart skipped a beat, but she kept her face calm. Sure, officers. Want a cookie while we talk? They didn't smile. We're not here for cookies, Jenkins said. We found evidence linking you to the stolen money. You need to come with us. The bakery went quiet. Customers stared. Mia, who was still there, dropped her coffee mug, and it shattered on the floor. Clara felt like the world was spinning, but she forced herself to stay steady. Evidence? She asked, her voice soft but firm. What evidence? You'll find out at the station, the other officers said gruffly. As they let her out, Clara glanced back at Mia, who looked terrified. Don't worry, Clara mouthed, but inside her mind was racing. Evidence? She hadn't touched the charity fund. Someone was setting her up, and they were doing it well. The investigation. Suspense and doubt at. The police station, Clara sat in a cold gray room with a single light bulb flickering above her. Officer Jenkins slid a folder across the table. Bank records, he said. They show 500 transferred from the charity fund to an account with your name on it. Clara's eyes narrowed. She didn't need to open the folder to know something was fishy. That's impossible, she said. I don't have an account like that. Jenkins raised an eyebrow. The account was open last month. Your name, your social security number, your address. You're saying it's not yours? Clara leaned back, her mind working like a computer. Someone had gone through a lot of trouble to frame her. But who? And why? She didn't have enemies in Willow Creek. She barely had enemies anywhere. Her old life as a lawyer was far behind. Hershey hadn't spoken to anyone from that world in years. I want to see a lawyer, Clara said, keeping her voice steady. Jenkins smirked. You'll get one. But you're not fooling anyone, Clara. A small-town baker pulling off a heist like this? You must think we're stupid. Clara didn't answer. She knew better than to argue with cops without a lawyer present. But as they locked her in a holding cell, her thoughts raced. The bank account was a fake, but it was a good fake. Whoever did this had access to her personal information and knew how to cover their tracks. This wasn't a random crime, it was personal. That night, alone in her cell, Clara overheard 2 officers whispering outside. Judge Grayson's pushing hard for this case, one said. He wants her trial fast, says she's a danger to the town. Clara's blood ran cold. Judge Harold Grayson. She'd never met him, but his name kept coming up in town gossip. He was powerful, rich, and known for being tough on crime. Some said he was too tough, like he enjoyed punishing people. Why was he so interested in her case? The next day, Clara met her court-appointed lawyer, a nervous young man named Tim who looked like he'd just graduated law school. Don't worry, Miss Thompson, Tim said, adjusting his glasses. I'll do my best to help you. Clara smiled politely, but inside, she was already planning her own defense. Tim was nice, but he was no match for a case this big. She'd have to be her own lawyer, even if nobody knew it yet. The trial begins, tension rises. The trial started a week later, faster than Clara expected. The courtroom was packed with townspeople, all whispering about the thief who betrayed them. Clara sat quietly, listening, as the prosecutor laid out the case. They showed bank records, emails, even a fake signature that looked like hers. The evidence was overwhelming, but Clara spotted holes in its small mistakes that only a legal genius would notice. Judge Grayson presided over the trial, his eyes cold and calculating. Every time Clara spoke, he cut her off or glared at her like she was a bug. Miss Thompson, he said once, This court doesn't have time for your excuses. Tim, her lawyer, tried to argue, but he fumbled his words. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Ms. Carter, tore through his defense like a shark. Clara stayed calm, taking mental notes. The bank records were forged, but the forger had used a real bank's template. The emails came from a server that wasn't secure. And the signature? It was close, but the loops on her C were wrong. Clara whispered to Tim, "Ask Miss Carter about the email server's IP address." Tim looked confused. "What's an IP address?" Clara sighed. She'd have to play her cards carefully. If she revealed too much of her legal knowledge, people might get suspicious about her past. But if she didn't act, she'd end up in prison. As the trial went on, Clara noticed something strange. Judge Grayson wasn't just tough, he was biased. He overruled Tim's objections, let Ms. Carter ramble, and even smirked when the crowd booed Clara. It was like he wanted her to lose. One day, during a break, Clara overheard Miss Carter talking to Judge Grayson in the hallway. "This case is airtight, Harold," she said. "She's going down, just like you wanted." Clara's heart raced. Just like you wanted? What did that mean? Was the judge part of the setup? She needed proof, but she was running out of time. Cliffhanger. The verdict looms on. The final day of the trial. Clara felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The prosecution had painted her as a greedy thief who betrayed her town. The evidence, though fake, looked real to everyone else. Even Mia, sitting in the crowd, looked unsure, her eyes red from crying. Clara had one last chance to speak before the verdict. She stood, her voice clear and steady. "Your Honor, I'm innocent. I've never stolen anything in my life. Someone set me up, and I think you know more about it than you're letting on." The courtroom gasped. Judge Grayson's face turned red. "How dare you accuse this court?" he shouted, slamming his gavel. "You're out of line, Miss Thompson." But Clara didn't back down. She locked eyes with him, her voice calm but fierce. "The truth will come out, Judge. It always does." The crowd was stunned. Tim looked like he might faint. Judge Grayson leaned back, his smug smile gone. For the first time, he looked nervous. As the jury left to decide her fate, Clara sat down, her heart pounding. She had just challenged a powerful judge in front of everyone. Had she gone too far? Or was this the moment that would turn the tide? The bailiff's voice broke the silence. "The jury has reached a verdict." Clara held her breath. What would they say? And what did Judge Grayson know that he wasn't telling? The courtroom felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with tension. Clara Thompson stood in the defendant's box, her heart thumping like a drum as the jury filed back in. Every eye was on her, some filled with pity, others with anger. Mia, her best friend, clutched a tissue, her face pale. Judge Harold Grayson sat high on his bench, his cold eyes fixed on Clara. His gavel rested in his hand, ready to seal her fate. The jury foreman, a nervous-looking man with glasses, stood. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Clara Thompson." He paused, and the silence was unbearable. "Guilty of all charges." The room exploded. People shouted, some cheering, others gasping. Mia let out a sob. Clara's knees wobbled, but she forced herself to stand tall. Guilty? It wasn't possible. The evidence was fake, she knew it. But the jury believed the lies. She glanced at Judge Grayson. His lips twitched into a tiny, triumphant smile, like a cat that caught a mouse. "Order!" he bellowed, banging his gavel. "Clara Thompson, you will serve 10 years in prison for stealing $500 from Willow Creek's charity fund. This court will not tolerate thieves who prey on our community." Clara's mind raced. 10 years? Her bakery, her quiet life, her freedom gone. But worse than the sentence was the look in Grayson's eyes. It wasn't just justice he wanted, it was her destruction. Why? She was nobody, just a baker. Or so he thought. As the bailiff grabbed her arm to lead her away, Clara's sharp eyes caught something, a quick glance between Judge Grayson and Miss Carter, the prosecutor. It was subtle, but it screamed conspiracy. They were in this together. Clara's legal genius brain kicked into high gear. She had to act fast, but she couldn't show her full hand yet. If she revealed her past as a brilliant lawyer, it might raise questions she wasn't ready to answer. The bailiff pulled her toward the door. Clara whispered to Tim, her nervous lawyer, "Appeal this. Now." Tim blinked, confused. "But the evidence?" "Do it," Clara hissed, her voice low but fierce. "And find out who opened that bank account. It's not mine." As she was led out, the crowd's shouts faded into a dull roar. Clara's mind was already working, piecing together the puzzle. Someone had framed her, and Judge Grayson was at the center of it. But how could she prove it from behind bars? Rewind. The investigation deepens. The story flashes back to the days leading up to the trial, when Clara first realized she was being hunted. After her arrest, Willow Creek buzzed with gossip. The local newspaper ran headlines like, "Beloved Baker a thief?" And neighbors who once smiled at Clara now avoided her. At Sweet Haven, business slowed to a trickle. People didn't trust a criminal to bake their bread. Clara was out on bail, thanks to Mia, who scraped together every penny she had. But freedom came with a catch. She couldn't leave town, and the police watched her every move. Clara spent her days in the bakery, pretending everything was normal. But at night, she turned into a detective. In her tiny apartment above the shop, Clara spread out papers on her kitchen table, copies of the fake bank records, emails, and the forged signature the police had shown her. She wasn't supposed to have these. Tim had snuck them to her, breaking about 10 rules. Clara didn't care. She needed answers. The bank account was the key. It had her name, her social security number, and her address. But Clara had never opened it. She traced the bank's name to a branch in the next town over, run by a man named Mr. Larson. Clara knew him. He sometimes bought her cinnamon rolls for his staff. He was kind, but quiet, the kind of man who kept secrets. Late one night, Clara called Mia. "I need a favor," she said. "Can you visit Larson's bank tomorrow? Ask about new accounts opened in the last 3 months. Don't say it's for me." Mia sounded scared. "Clara, what's going on? You're acting like a spy or something." Clara laughed softly. "Just trust me, okay? I need to know who's behind this." Mia agreed, but Clara could hear the doubt in her voice. Even her best friend was starting to wonder if the accusations were true. It hurt, but Clara pushed the feeling aside. She had to focus. The next day, Mia came back with news. "Mr. Larson got weird when I asked about accounts," she said, sitting at Clara's counter with a worried frown. "He said he couldn't talk about it, but his hands were shaking. Then he got a call and practically ran me out of the bank." Clara's eyes narrowed. "He's hiding something. Or someone's making him." Mia grabbed Clara's hand. "Clara, this is getting scary. What if you're poking into something dangerous?" Clara squeezed her hand back. "I'll be fine, Mia. I promise." But she wasn't so sure. That night, as Clara pored over the papers again, she noticed something new. The fake emails accusing her of the theft came from an IP address linked to a computer in the courthouse. The courthouse! That meant someone with access, someone powerful, was involved. Judge Grayson's face flashed in her mind. Was he the mastermind? Or was he just a piece of a bigger puzzle? A dangerous discovery. The next morning, Clara decided to take a risk. She needed more information, and the courthouse was her best bet. She couldn't waltz in as a suspect, so she disguised herself, borrowing Mia's big sunglasses and a floppy hat. She felt silly, like a kid playing dress-up, but it worked. Nobody recognized her as she slipped into the courthouse's public records room. The room was dusty, filled with old files and a bored clerk who barely looked up from his phone. Clara pretended to browse Rusa System. The courtroom buzzed with tension as the second day of Emma Carter's trial began. The air felt heavy, like a storm was coming. People packed the wooden benches, whispering and craning their necks to see Emma, the simple baker who dared to challenge Judge Harold Grayson. Yesterday's bombshell, Emma's claim that the evidence was fake, had left everyone stunned. The jury looked uneasy, glancing at Emma, then at the judge, wondering what would happen next. Emma stood at the defendant's table, her blue dress neat but plain, her face calm but her eyes sharp like a hawk's. She was ready for battle, even if no one else knew it. Judge Grayson sat high on his bench, his face like stone. He looked at Emma with a glare that could freeze water, but she didn't flinch. She knew he was hiding something, and she was determined to find out what. The judge banged his gavel, making the room go quiet. "Order," he barked. "We'll continue with the prosecution's case. Mr. Baxter, call your next witness." Emma's heart pounded, but she kept her cool. She'd spent all night digging through her law books, piecing together clues like a puzzle. She was sure the judge was behind the fake evidence, but proving it in court against a powerful man like him was going to be tricky. One wrong move, and she'd lose everything. The prosecution's attack. A new witness, Mr. Baxter, the prosecutor, stood up with a smug smile. He was a tall man with slick hair and a shiny suit, the kind of person who loved winning. "Your Honor, I call Mr. Thompson to the stand," he said. The crowd murmured as Mr. Thompson, the grumpy librarian, shuffled forward. He was old, with thick glasses and a sour face, like he'd just bitten a lemon. He swore to tell the truth, but Emma noticed his hands fidgeting. "He's nervous," she thought. "Why?" Mr. Baxter paced in front of the witness stand. "Mr. Thompson, tell the court what you saw on the night of April 15th, when the charity money disappeared." Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. "I was closing the library late that night. I saw Emma Carter near the town hall, looking sneaky. She was standing by the back door, holding something shiny. I think it was a key." The crowd gasped. Emma's friend Lucy, sitting in the back, shouted, "That's a lie!" The judge banged his gavel. "Quiet, or I'll clear the court," he snapped. Emma's stomach twisted. She hadn't been anywhere near the town hall that night. She was home, studying. But Mr. Thompson's story matched Mrs. Jenkins from yesterday, and it made her look guilty. Mr. Baxter held up the fake photo of Emma near the town hall, pointing at the scarf. "This is you, isn't it, Miss Carter?" he asked, smirking. Emma stood up. "No, sir. I don't own a scarf like that, and I wasn't there." Her voice was steady, but inside she was scared. The jury was staring at her, and some looked like they believed Mr. Thompson. She needed to act fast. Emma's counterattack, spotting the lie. When it was her turn to question Mr. Thompson, Emma walked to the witness stand holding her folder of notes. She'd never done this before, but her law books had taught her how to ask questions to catch lies. She smiled politely at Mr. Thompson, who squirmed in his seat. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "you said you saw me at 10?